So this week's episode of Blade of the Immortal, we focus back onto Manji, we have Taito, and we had the return of Shira, and it was pretty damn awesome, I have to say. I will say, though, I don't know, maybe the first 8 minutes, I was thinking to myself, it was feeling a little slow, and Blade of the Immortal has had plenty of slower moments, don't get me wrong, but it did feel like I was wondering where this episode would really go, if they were actually going to get to something. But once we did get into the back half of this episode, the intro actually played a crucial role into getting us ease, getting us to understand the tension and what's going on with these characters, and then by the time the episode wrapped up, I was hyping it up as I have for the past few episodes, which I thought have been to be exceptional in their own right. So even though at first I was a little iffy on it, it really did pick up, and I really enjoyed the intro by the time I saw the entire episode in its entirety, which was pretty awesome. I have to say though, it's a shame that we aren't going to have more Manji and Taito kind of traveling along together, but even though we only really got it for an episode, it felt like such a great partnership, and it's going to be interesting to see what it's going to look like when they do meet up again, because most likely they will be on opposite sides of the battlefield, and who knows what that's going to look like, because they definitely have a level of respect for one another. I mean, you don't have Manji giving him half the money that he got from the bandits that were basically assigned to kill them, unless he did have some level of respect for the dude, and it was a very nice mirror to what basically happened to Rin from the family who helped her cross the little border patrol there. So I thought it just kind of showed an interesting thing of like two sides of the same coin, and how Manji and Rin really do have a lot in common, and how it was just this nice little deed to kind of tie this little mini arc together. But something I have to really give major compliments to is the action in this show. A lot of people rip into it for maybe not moving as much as they want, but you have to give a lot of props to the realism in the overall body weight. And what I mean by this is how when actual two people are clashing swords together, it's not this like water dance where everything is so pitch perfect. They always never make a mistake, and it's just like one slash and it's over. Like, people can get stabbed and they can get back up. As long as they're not getting stabbed in the heart or through the throat or something like that, the adrenaline of the moment can keep you going. But the idea that when characters are tossed to the ground and there's a blade coming down to their face, and they're struggling to get it off of them, they kick them off and make mistakes, they put the foot the wrong place, they trip. It just feels as if it's not this superhuman just spectacle that a lot of anime presents like samurai type battles as if, you know, two katanas are coming their way and it's just a lot of clashing, there's no mistakes. It feels clumsy, and that's a good thing. You should have, even if these are master swordsmen, they should be making mistakes, and even if they're not making mistakes, having a blade come your way and you're either deflecting or trying to reflect it back at them, it's not an easy thing, and there should be a lot of inconsistencies with everyone's swordplay, which there absolutely is. You're basically going up against a man who has one of his arms as like this blade that you have to try to deal with, which it's such an unnatural opponent that you have to either like put your arm through it and try to not get hurt while doing that, or just having to accept that you're going to get stabbed as then you stab him with a more prominent blade. That's what's so great about Blade of the Immortal. I think a lot of people overlook, even myself to some degree, where you have such realism to its combat that even though they're not blowing you away maybe with spectacle and all this flash and things like that, but in return you're getting something that feels human. As if you're watching two human characters literally go at it as if, yes, even if these two are master swordsmen, they're going to be clunky, they're going to be going through rooms, they're going to be panting, they're going to be very wounded. This isn't going to be a clean fight as if it's movie quality, as if everything's just going to be so well acted. No, there's going to be dirt in people's eyes, there's going to be scars, there's going to be people winded, and that's what makes this action sequence so great to me, is that not because it was like, oh my god, look at the animation, look at how hyped up this looks. No, the reason I thought that back half of the episode was so great for its action was that it felt so real. And the fact that we can look at 2D drawings and not be looking at 2D drawings as if, oh, look at how well the team went in, they were, really making it look flashy. And to be honest, I actually thought when we did get into some actual animation, not just cutting away to the next image, it did look pretty good. But the reason I was as hyped up as I was is I was just looking at this feeling like, these feel like two real people trying to kill one another, and you felt the resolve in both characters' eyes, which is saying a hell of a lot. I mean, the episode pretty much kicks off with our two guys just kind of traveling a little bit, and then obviously, Shira is gonna come back sooner rather than later. And there's actually some decent comedy in this episode, and just little, almost you could call them slice of life little banters, I guess, is how I'd put it, where you have someone like Manji just trying to separate himself. He's had some run-ins with this guy, and he clearly knows Taito has more revenge in his eyes for what he did to clearly a love of his life, even if maybe he didn't want to say that. And it was nice to see how Manji kind of just separated himself from this and took on the little bandits who were trying to basically kill him, which I have to say, on one hand, I love seeing him basically get just stomped on, stabbed on, because you know he's going to come back up. But it's like, on the other hand, how much pain does this man need to deal with before he can just be like, you know what, I'm going to kill these fools before they actually start hurting me? But at the same time, he didn't really blame these guys. It was more, you know, well, you got hired, so I understand it. So I'll let you do this, just give me your money in return. And I just love how at the end of the episode, when he's basically giving him half of the money that he got from these little bandits, these little mercenaries, Taito is basically just saying how he was shaking up people while he was actually doing the dirty work. That's actually why it's a little disappointing that we may not see more shenanigans and traveling with these two for quite some time, and most likely when they do see each other again, it's going to be on opposite sides of the battlefield, and who knows what that's going to look like for its conclusion. But I did like the idea of setting this battle, for the most part, in a forest, having like Manji tackling him through the woods and then basically passing the torch over, because someone like Taito is much more capable in a forest, but then once you see that he's basically just hiding in a goddamn building, that's where the tides start turning. And I love how there's just so many shots. This was actually my favorite shot in this entire episode, and one of my favorite shots in Blade of the Immortal period. You just have Taito basically like, you know, he's next to the building, and then you see the eyes of Shira in the distance, like just creaking through the door there. It's like, it's such a creepy shot, and you immediately knew that either someone's getting stabbed or the door is going to come flying. And I love how many times there are those just moments where characters' backs are against the wall, and because they're on the other side of the wall, they can just stab them, and the amount of pain, the amount of blood. Like, once again, similar to how, like, with last week, where you had such violation applied to such a beautiful character, it felt so real, it felt so gruesome, it felt like you wanted to look away. Once again, you have that, but this time with action and blood. The idea of how many times characters get stabbed, even from Shira, like, it feels disturbing to look at. It almost feels as if the team is putting all their time into the thing that they want to nail properly with its visual presentation, and that's the realism of how a body reacts. When someone gets stabbed, there should be this like reaction, this shock, not just like, oh, blood splatters and you call it a day. No, there should be this like as if their muscles are tensing up and they're going to flee and just, you know, just shiver up. Like, it feels as if they're putting all their time and resources into things like that. So when these characters do get stabbed, or there are just these really vulnerable reactions when someone is taunting you about how they killed someone and saying how you should stab a vital point as you're about to just release. And it's like, what the hell is wrong with these characters? But the raw reactions from pain to just emotional distraught, it feels as if it goes all in to deliver something that actually has this really human component in such an animated and fictional world, and that's kind of fantastic in itself. And for the most part, this was definitely an action-oriented episode, a lot of action, primarily on Taito's side, but even with that said, it felt like it was still telling a really interesting narrative. And something I come back to on this channel all the time for pretty much any anime with action is that unless there is a story being told, the action is pointless. If you literally just have, you know, you introduce two characters and they're swinging swords around, who cares? Like, maybe it looks good, but why are we dedicating time to spectacle when there's an actual story to tell? And whether we're focusing on Rin's side and her revenge, or we're focusing on Manji and trying to, like, you know, make up for what he failed at in the past, or like in this episode where we had Taito wanting to get revenge for what happened to someone he truly cared for, it was nice to see that every swing, every stab, every little pain that we saw in a character's face, it felt as if there was still a story being told. So immediately my thought was, okay, I can't criticize this because there's actually a story at play. All the animation that was like really impressive to me was either the reactions from the bodies and how they were inflicting pain, or just the struggles, the exhaustion. Like, it felt like these characters were winded. That's why characters had to catch their breath. And yeah, maybe they shouldn't have had their back against a wall, but who would have thought someone like him would still try to carry on? The only one he wanted to fight was Manji, so it was understandable why he made that clumsy mistake. It feels like that's where the detail really goes, and there's plenty of still frames that really get the essence of blood and despair in a flashy manner, so it all really works out quite well for me. And like I mentioned, yeah, the first little chunk of the episode, it did feel rather slow, as if maybe this would be more of like a traveling episode, maybe there wouldn't be too much conflict, too much personal struggle. I actually thought we'd be traveling for a couple more episodes, but to actually see how they naturally transitioned into such a very brutal but very emotionally charming episode. It just kind of felt like this little mini adventure they had, it kind of works quite well in a one episode fashion. If we take into consideration the past 3 episodes, including this one, it kind of feels like the best Blade of the Immortal has been, at least for myself. And I'm actually seeing a lot more people start hyping this series up as well, saying as if, you know, it deserves a lot more hype, a lot more praise. It's a shame not a lot of people are watching it. And I definitely agree. Would I say Blade of the Immortal is one of my favorite anime of the year? No. But would I say I've enjoyed it since episode 1 and continue to enjoy, if not more, or just the same as I have from prior weeks? Absolutely. It just shows that I'm incredibly glad I have been watching, I have been keeping up with it, and even though I wouldn't say it's one of my favorites of the season, or I would say it's one of my favorites of the year, that doesn't mean it's a bad thing. I think there's a lot of people out there, unless they feel like they're hyping it up as one of the best anime of the year, or one of the best anime of the season, they feel as if it's okay to sleep on it. But to me, it's like, if you only watch things that you think are the best of the best, like, you're gonna miss out on a lot of quality shows. And it's fine to have a show that, yes, maybe doesn't capture the essence and, isn't as great as maybe its source material, but as an anime story, I feel like it's a good experience. It feels like something that, with time, like a good wine, is getting better and better, and who knows how I'll feel by the time the second core wraps up. Maybe I will say it's actually one of my favorite anime of, next year, depending on what the story goes through. But nonetheless, it still feels like a great anime to me, and I am glad to see that even if it's like a cult following, there are a group of people being like, you know what, this is a great anime, and it's a damn shame not more people are hyping it up. And I definitely agree. I've pretty much been saying that since the beginning, to be honest. But if I compare my enjoyment from, say, the first 6 episodes now to like 7 through 11, I definitely much prefer the later content to this anime, but that kind of just goes with any story like this. The deeper you get into like a revenge tale, the more interesting the characters, the action pieces, and just the personal motivations become, because there's actually connections being formed, both the good and the bad. It just kind of works its magic naturally, so it's not to say like the intro was bad, but rather just now that we got to understand these characters more, all these interactions just feel a lot more complex, which is always a nice bonus. But overall, this was a great episode. Really, the past 3 episodes has just been this extra quality that I hope to see carry on throughout the remainder of this first core and then going into the second core. But whatever anyone is feeling, do let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below, and if you enjoyed the video, be sure to drop a like, and remember to hit that subscribe button if you have been new. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.